Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Noble Manhattan, USA East Coast Coaching Support Group meeting. We'd like to welcome all coaches, coach students, as well as the curious to our meeting tonight. We do this once a month, and we are an extension of Noble Manhattan, which is the largest coach training provider in Europe. Noble Manhattan was founded by Gerard O'Donovan in 1993 and is now in over 29 countries, and over 25,000 coaches have been trained by Noble Manhattan worldwide. Our group exists for the purpose of supporting coaching students, and our team here tonight is Beatrice Phillips, as well as Petra Butler, Maria Tatum, and Emily Thompson, and then Michael Baskiness, and then we have our ambassadors, Susan Chester and Glenn Phillips. The way the meeting runs is first we do introductions. So we have a fantastic speaker tonight. She will be giving a presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A session. And after that, we go into breakout rooms. The purpose of the breakout rooms is for coaches to come together to either practice their coaching skill with other coaches, like-minded people, or for people who are looking for support to experience what it is to be like being coached by a professional coach. We also use these groups as masterminds, so you can always bring a challenge that we can all think about and see if we can support you. And these breakout rooms are trusted spaces, they're safe spaces, and everything that's being said in the rooms stays in the rooms. Now, at this point in time, I would like to hand it over to Maria Tatum so she can go ahead and introduce our fantastic speaker for this evening. Maria?
Hello, everyone. And today I have the pleasure to introduce our amazing speaker. Her name is Danyda Feldman. She's actually very international. She was born in Montreal, Canada. She grew up in England, the Netherlands, and the US. She's a professional storyteller, a speaker, and a coach who has performed for adults and children at numerous events like the Special Olympics, the March of Dimes, and many other festivals. She loves how the power of stories can heal, bring people together, and create bonds through space and time. She also worked in the tech software industry for over 13 years, and she's currently working with amazing people to really help them tap into their true power for them to find their voice. And this is what we're going to be learning all about today. So I'm going to pass the mic on to Danyda. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, so use the chat for any questions that you have throughout the talk. So go ahead, Danyda.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's delightful to be here virtually with all of you today, and I hope you are having a fabulous day and evening. It's late afternoon where I am. I'm in Colorado, and I'm just really happy to get the chance to talk to everyone. So why don't we go ahead and pop the poll up just to get started. And when I say poll, I mean the questions and not an actual literal poll. I'll leave that. I have some other friends who like the actual poll in the middle of the room for dancing purposes. I don't have that flexibility. I'd probably break a hip. So the question is, how much do you enjoy public speaking or giving a presentation? Do you love it? Do you do it because you have to, but you'd rather do pretty much anything else? Or would you rather be burned alive? I'll just give you a second to pop that up. I'm going to put my own answer in there since it popped up for me as well. And the truth is, I love it, and I've always loved it. People tell me, and it always came as a surprise to me because I've been a speaker and a performer and a storyteller ever since I was a little girl, which is quite a long time ago now. And I got in trouble for it a lot. I used to, every single report card I ever had said, Danyda talks too much. And I thought that it was a bad thing in one way, but I still loved to do it anyway. And what happened was, oh, thank you. Awesome. So we've got the majority of people do it if they have to, but they don't enjoy it. Well, I'm going to hopefully change your minds today, because I think that public speaking is really absolutely a fun thing to do. And if you can tap that joy, just like you do with your coaching, the idea that you're going to help people, that you're going to do something that is going to transform people using only the power of your voice. You'll notice I don't have any slides today. I'm just going to use my voice to hopefully change your mind. So anyway, so I was a little girl. I used to get in trouble a lot for talking too much. I thought it was just an ordinary thing that I did, until one day I found out that it is one of the top fears that people have. People would rather walk into a cage of lions. People would rather be burned alive than have to give a presentation in front of a group. And I was baffled by this. But the thing is that it has to do with what we do inside our heads. We can be our own best friend, or we can be our own worst enemy. And we all know about this. We're all coaches here. We all work with everybody else. If somebody came to you and said, oh, I have this fear of this thing, or I can't stop this bad habit, you would immediately, you draw on the coaching experience that you have and your amazing creativity. Because one thing I know about coaches is we are an incredibly creative bunch of people. And you would find solutions. You would help them tap into their unconscious mind, have a great conversation with your unconscious voice, get your unconscious voice on board, and start making the changes that have a powerful impact. And that's extraordinary. And the good news is you can do it for yourself. But you have to have a working relationship with what's going on, because a lot of the stuff, a lot of the negative messages happen at an unconscious level. People will say to me, oh, I don't believe in affirmations, they don't work. And I say, well, why do you think they don't work? Well, because I tried saying every day in every way I'm getting better and better and better, or I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. And people still don't like me, and I'm still not good enough. And I said, the problem is that you've got other messages that you are affirming every day. And those messages are, I'm not good enough. People don't like me. I can't speak up because my voice is funny. But I tell you what, sometimes having a funny voice can be a real asset. Just saying. And sometimes getting your unconscious voice to change how it sounds can be a very powerful thing. Because often our unconscious voice gets put there by people who really, really love us and really want the best for us. And you know who those people are. They're people who all of your life, ever since you were a little child, would say helpful things like, you should get a proper job, or don't take too big of a risk because then people won't like you. And the very helpful things that I got growing up, partially it's an English thing, partially because I'm a woman, partially because I'm Jewish, I would get very helpful messages that were mixed. So don't put yourself out there too much. Don't blow your own trumpet. Don't get too much attention because people won't like it. And I grew up in the 70s, and that was a really weird time to be a woman because we got really mixed messages. We got messages that anything is possible if you're a woman. You can do it all. But our mums and our grandmothers will still saying, you should get a boyfriend, you should get married, you should have babies. And every time my family would call up my mum and they would be like, my nickname is Danny, they would be like, does Danny have a boyfriend? And if I did have a boyfriend, is he Jewish? And so now here I am at the age that I am, and oh no, I'm single and I'm fine with it. And I'm starting to develop this independence within myself of finding out what it is that I want to create and finding my voice and finding that I have a powerful voice. I've always had a powerful voice. I have the kind of voice that can stop taxis in the middle of the road. And I used to think that that was a bad thing. And we get these mixed messages a lot from people who love us, as I've said. And the thing is to reprogram those voices so that they're more useful. So think about a voice, a negative message that you may have in your voice going round right now. And notice where that voice is located in space. It might be behind you, might be above you, might be to one side. Just kind of notice where it is. And notice, who does it sound like? Does it sound like you? Does it sound like your mother or your father or a teacher? Just notice that. And notice if it's moving at, if it's a regular sort of conversational like I am right now, or if it's kind of slow. And you don't want to do that. And oh my goodness, if you can't do that, it's really going to be a big trouble and you're going to be blah, 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 blah. And what you can do with that is you can change it. You can move it around. If it's behind your head, for example, try moving it down into your baby finger and notice how that changes what it sounds like. What you may notice is that it starts losing some of its power over you. And once you bring it into conscious awareness, then you can start affecting it. You can change the sound of it. You can change the speed. You can change its position in space. You can give it a funny sound like I've demonstrated. You can add in some funny music like the Benny Hill theme. And then to add in even more power, it's like, what would you like your unconscious mind to be giving you as a message? What would you give someone who had come to you for coaching as a message? Something along the lines of, you've got this. You've got something to say. Your voice deserves to be heard. You have power, and it's safe to use that power. It's safe to speak up. It's safe to be heard. Now, I don't know on this call, maybe B can tell me or Maria can tell me, what proportion of women to men do we have on the call tonight? Because I'm seeing a lot of ladies.
Actually, I don't see any guys.
Oh, good. No,
Okay,
I mean,
one person, one guy.
Oh, I love men. I do love men. But when as a woman, what I advise as part of the masterclass that I teach is support your voice and support your voice from your vagina. And the reason for this is if you take singing or if you learn any kind of voice production learning, which I've done, I took singing classes because at one point my voice was getting kind of damaged because I'm a storyteller and I do witch voices and I cackle and I do dragons. So I was hurting myself on a regular basis, and to stop hurting myself on a regular basis, I went and I took some singing lessons. And what they taught me is put your hands on your belly and take a breath. And what you'll notice is if you breathe from your belly just, it blows out like a giant balloon. And that's what you want because you're expanding your lungs, but you are supporting from all the way down in the depth. And that will give your voice resonance. it will give your voice support, and it will give your voice strength. And I've spoken to a lot of women. I come from the tech realm as part of my history. And I talk to a lot of women who talk like this. And they're like, okay, I'm going to take a development program. And we've been writing lots of code. And I'm like, oh, does your mommy know where you are? And I teach women to take their power back. Now, that kind of voice works brilliantly for somebody like Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe built a career. She made herself a millionaire by doing the breathy little girl sexy voice. Every voice has a place. Every different type of voice has a purpose. And it's all about leveraging that purpose. So if you want to be Marilyn Monroe, then you can do the happy birthday, Mr. President. But if you want people to take you seriously as an expert, then my suggestion is you leverage the girls. And by the girls, I mean deep down into your organs and just breathe from your base chakra and just bring that up. And another thing that women also have a tendency to do, and I've heard some modern men do this as well, but it seems to be a lot of women do this, is they upspeak at the end of every sentence. And I'm going to tell you some facts. And this is really going to be interesting. And I have a PhD in psychology. And I'm not threatening at all because I'm putting a question at the end of everything. And I just need you to validate me as a human being. And aren't I cute? Whereas if you say, hi, I'm Dr. Maria Tadim. I have a doctorate in health science. And I'm going to tell you how to fix your life so you have energy and strength and power that lasts all day long. Cool? That's taking our power and setting an intention. Before you do a communication, before you give a presentation, what is your intention for that presentation? We spend a lot of time before a presentation thinking about what our body is doing. And our body is giving us signals because our bodies, even though we're living in 2021, our bodies can't tell the difference between 2021 and millions of years ago when we were literally fighting for our life at any given moment. And we didn't know if a saber-toothed tiger was going to come leaping out of the forest and gobble us for dinner. That doesn't happen as much anymore. Although in Colorado, we do have bobcats and bears, and it is a possibility if, you know, some of my weird friends like to go hiking and climbing mountains and things. And I don't do that. But, you know, so there is a possibility. But when you walk into a room to give a presentation, the chances of that happening are much, much less. But our bodies don't tell the difference. They can't tell the difference. So what we have to do is, first of all, reinterpret those signals. Because I love to talk and I still get in front of a group and I still get flutters in my stomach. I still get signals in my throat. I still get signals throughout my body, but I don't call them fear. I don't call them butterflies. I call it excitement. I call it energy. And I set that intention that that is going to power me into my presentation. And I have tricks that I use. So I will wear an outfit, or if I'm not wearing an outfit, I'm a storyteller, so I make costumes, and I will wear a costume to go and do a storytelling gig. And when I put on my costume, I become the storyteller. And you don't have to go to that level in order to do that. You can have a pair of earrings that is your presentation earrings, or a bracelet, or a pin, or a scarf, or a jacket. It really doesn't matter. The point is that you anchor that powerful feeling, and then you stand, you plant yourself like Wonder Woman about to take on the enemies. You plant yourself firmly on the floor. You strike a pose, whether it's a physical pose, because people might look at you funny. I don't have a problem with that. I'm perfectly happy to let people look at me funny. But you can do it on the inside. You practice when you're rehearsing your presentation of planting yourself firmly, setting that intention that you are going to have a great time with your presentation. You're going to have as much fun as possible. I find the best results I get are when I set an intention to go in and have as much fun as I possibly can have. And I trust your unconscious. I say, I don't know exactly what words are going to come out of my mouth when I give this presentation, but I have an intention of having as great a time as I possibly can, because life's too short to do otherwise. And I have great information, which I love to share. And I know that if I share it and I show my enthusiasm and have as much fun as possible, then people will invariably come along with me. Not everybody, because let's be honest, not everybody is going to like you. And it's sad, but not everybody does, because it doesn't matter what you do or who you are. There are some people who, you know, maybe they're having a bad day, maybe they just are in a funny energy funk, or maybe they're just not nice people, and you don't need to make them happy, you know, anyway, because they're not going to be happy. Some people, we know this from coaching, there are some people who are not happy unless they're miserable. And you can be the best coach on the planet, and you're not going to be able to help them because they do not want to be helped. And that was a huge thing I learned as a coach, because it made me miserable, because I wanted to make everybody happy. And some people are not happy unless they're miserable. So I let them go with love and light, and I bring in the people that I want to work with, who are fun people, who enjoy what they do, who love working with people, who want to be helped and want to have the experience that I am here to offer. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I love this stuff so much. So here are my key takeaways: is set an intention for your presentation. Practice. If you were going to go on a stage and be in a Shakespeare play, you wouldn't just leap out onto the stage and expect to be able to be Juliet. Well, I might, but you know. Maybe Juliet's grandmother, perhaps, at this point. But you practice, and you get people to listen to you, and be willing to listen to yourself. That's a hard one. It was a hard one for me. For a long time, I would listen to my voice on a recording, and I couldn't believe that that's what I sounded like outside of my own head, because inside my head, I sound gorgeous. So I thought, how can I sound outside of my head on a recording more like I do inside my head? So I had to suck it up. I had to listen to myself and adjust until I got the sound that I wanted. Recording specialists, when you sing a song and you've got the recording technicians, they adjust the sound and they make it sound the way that you want. But we can do it on our own. We can do it with our voice. You just have to play with it. You just have to play with it. and have fun. So set that intention, practice, and plant yourself and give yourself some tools that will help you feel more confident. Because when you do that, then your presentation improves naturally. Because that confidence shines out. And you all know how to do this. You do it for other people every day. Just be your own client and do it for yourself. So how are we for time?
You still have 20 more minutes if you want.
Ooh.
But I can ask a question actually if you would like.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Petra wants to know, how do you work on stuttering and bring confidence back during speaking? For example, when you get flustered.
Oh, right, that is a fabulous question. So how to help with stuttering and if you get flustered during a talk. Stuttering is one of those things that is a mechanical function that it depends what's causing the stuttering. And again, as coaches, we can work with someone who is having that issue. And sometimes it's just a question of slowing down and giving your brain a chance to catch up with your mouth. Because sometimes your brain is working very fast and your mouth is working, and sometimes they're not quite in sync. So, and it's perfectly fine to slow down. I work with a load of people who feel like, oh, well, I've got to get all this stuff out really, really fast because otherwise I won't be able to get all my information in. And if I don't talk too fast, blah, 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 and then there's like a disconnect. Things start short circuiting, and then you get into fluster mode. And everybody who is a presenter, and I don't care how long they've been doing it and how many times they've given the same talk, it happens to all of us. The key is to relax and breathe and just give your brain a chance to catch up with your mouth. You pause, and if you need to, you just say, hey, I just need to catch up with myself. Or I meant to tell you something. I have had this happen in the middle of reciting a poem from memory. And I had literally just recited the poem. And I did 2 shows that day, and it was all poetry. I recited the poem. It was perfectly fine. I recited all the other poems perfectly fine. I get to the second show. I start reciting the poem. I had a complete and utter brain fart. I mean, complete brain went utterly blank. It happened. And I said, it was a group of students at a school, and I said, I need to start again. I've lost my place. I need to start again. And I took a breath and I started again. And I had the teachers come up to me afterwards thanking me because it showed that I'm a human being and it happens. And most of the time when I'm reciting or I'm performing something from memory, I take the tack of pretty much nobody sitting in the audience with the script for the most part. So if I'm reciting a poem and I mix up a word or I get a phrase wrong, I'm pretty confident that 90% of the time, no one's sitting in the audience with the poem going, oh, she screwed that up. The only time that's not the case is when I'm in the room with other storytellers. And when I'm in the room with other storytellers, 99% of the time, 99% of them do know the poem that I'm reciting from memory. And I actually had this happen. I was performing a poem and the gal who is the keynote speaker at the Storytelling Festival, because we're a big community of professionals, she knew the poem I was reciting, and she was mouthing it along as I was reciting the poem. And I'm a fairly good lip reader, so I was aware very much of what she was doing. And I had to try very hard to focus back in on my performance and not on what she was doing. Because, and you're always going to, you have different kinds of audiences. If you're presenting, if you go and give a talk at a different kind of facility, I've performed at retirement facilities where there's doctor announcements going on over my head. I once had a little old lady in the back of the room yelling, "Help, help, help," the whole time. There's all kinds of stuff. And this is why you practice, you know your material, you know what it is that you want to say and what you want to get across. And you learn to tune out the crying babies and the distractions that go in. And you create a visualization in your head of your talk. So, and that's a great technique for having your memory of what you're talking about, is to have kind of an internal screen. And we've used internal screens for different kinds of visualizations when we're working with clients. But you can use it as a great strategy of having your notes up there. And if you're like, oh, I was going to talk about the function of the reticular activating system as it pertains to my discussion of how the mind works, and what were my notes? Well, you can look up, and you look up to your left because that's where you store visual remembered information, and you make sure, and you just bring that back down. So it's kind of like you have a cheat sheet, you have your own personal teleprompter up, and you just have to, kind of key yourself in, train yourself to use it. But once you have it up there, it's like the memory palace or mind mapping or any of those strategies that we use every day to improve our skill set, to make sure that you have it there. And still bubbles happen, and you just have to relax and like, hey, guess what? I'm human. Hooray! It's been proven. Woohoo! Any other questions?
Yes, we got two more. So how do you work on words like during your presentation, like using that as fillers? Because you clearly use none. How are you so good at it?
First of all, intention. Second of all, slow down. Thirdly, ums and ms is not the end of the world. Give yourself permission to have an and an occasionally. People are not going to care. They are not going to come up to you afterwards and say, hey, that was a really great talk about the coaching strategies, and it was really interesting, and I feel really empowered, but you kept saying People are not going to do that, but slow down. Ums and ahs and mms are fillers because, again, it has to do with your brain is trying to catch up with your mouth. So keep them as much in sync as possible, and practice doing it even more outrageously than you would normally. Try saying your talk as if you're Dory talking to the whale. It forces you to be mindful. Do I use notes during my presentation? it depends on what my presentation is. I prefer not to, if I can possibly help it. And again, it's kind of a cheat because I have my notes up to my left. And the way I prepare is I don't do a word for word. I don't, unless if I'm doing a poem or if I'm doing a Shakespeare soliloquy thing, yeah, I try and learn it word for word. But if I'm just giving a talk, I don't mean just giving a talk. If I'm giving a talk, I learn it as if I'm learning a story. So I visualize what I want to talk about. And I also give myself room to be flexible so that I can change it, because sometimes, if you're talking to a room and it seems like everybody is dropped off to sleep, I might suddenly decide, well, this is the perfect opportunity to sing and wake people up, or look at somebody in the audience and say, what do you think about this? Or I might be moving. I might decide that what I want to, and it's harder on Zoom, obviously, but I can still do some anchoring of some great feelings. And I can come up to, say, Emily, who's being very responsive, and I love that. And I can come up to Emily very close into the camera, and I can go, because it never fails. Will I do more rehearsal to check my content and body language before giving my presentation? And where are my eyes? Do I focus on anyone in the audience? Two fabulous questions. And again, it depends on my presentation and what my intention of my presentation is. Body language, movement, focus can be very, very powerful, as can tone of voice. If I want to get a real point across and say, you can now begin to be more comfortable when giving a presentation. I marked out the word comfortable, and I will do it again, comfortable. You can now begin to be more comfortable giving a presentation. And that will lock it in your mind. And even if I never say that word comfortable again, if I do this, you may find yourself suddenly getting more comfortable. And let me look this up. What was the other question? Where are my eyes? Do I focus on anyone in the audience? It depends on where my audience is. I do try and single people out in the audience. It depends how big the audience is. If it's a smaller audience, then it's easier. And if I'm doing for a presentation for younger people or people who are having some attention things, or decide that during my presentation is the perfect time to go and have a phone call, not that that's ever happened to me, I will actually focus on that person, and I will go and I will get their face, depending on what the presentation is. But I do try and I pick people out, and I will look people in the eyes, because that's also then it has the effect of making people think that you're talking directly to them, like I am to Maurice right now. And I'm looking right into your beautiful face, and I'm focusing in, and you can't help but smile, because you know that this talk is all for you, my dear. This is all for you. What about hand movements? Great question. I am a very handy speaker, and I use gestures. I try as much as I can to use them more purposefully. And I will answer that question in just a moment. So I use my hands to try and, again, anchor a response. So as you can see, you can now become more comfortable. I will move myself. It's like, when I'm over here, I'm going to talk about the problem. When I'm over here, I'm going to talk about the solution. And when I come back over here, we're talking about the problem. And when I come over here, it's time for the solution. And you can do it with tone of voice. You can do it with your hands. You know, you can do all kinds of fun things. And again, that's a practice thing. And it's like when you're rehearsing, it's like, what do I want to get across? I want to get across that this is really fun. So I might do something along those lines. And the other question was, yes, and I do use NLP. I've been an NLP master practitioner for quite a while. So thank you for that question. And as far as memorizing, again, I really don't memorize when I'm giving a talk. When I'm learning a poem or when I'm learning a story where I want to use the words that the author used, I use a combination of visualization and just rote repetition. I will repeat the heck out of something until I don't want to hear the Lady of Shalott ever again. But and then I go away and I take a break. And that's a powerful trick as well, is take a break. You know, learn a little while, take a break. Go do something completely different. Go walk the dogs, go play with the kids, go and watch a Netflix show or a couple of Netflix shows, go and make some dinner, do a complete something that has nothing to do with it, and do not think about what it is that you are working on. Just completely let it go, let it go. And who's the best speaker I have ever heard? Oh my goodness, there's so many. I think Oprah Winfrey is a fabulous speaker. I think Tony Robbins is a fabulous speaker. And you've put me on the spot, and I have a lot of storyteller friends that you will have never heard of, who are some of the most extraordinary speakers. And if you're interested in that, there's storytellers all around the country, all around the world. And if you want to hear great speakers, listen to storytellers, because the power of story, we are all storytellers, we are all story listeners. Now, a story doesn't necessarily mean once upon a time there was a little girl who lived in a cottage by the woods. That's part of it. But the stories are, I was at work today and my boss came in and this is what she said to me, and it was absolutely overwhelming. Those are stories. The stories of when I was a little girl, I moved to the Netherlands and I went to the American school in The Hague, and I learned to speak like an American kid. And by the time we moved back to England 3 years later, I sounded like a total American kid. And people don't believe me anymore because now I've been living in Colorado and I don't talk like an American. And people ask me if I can talk normal, which I don't know what that means. So those are all stories, and we teach through story. Story is an integral part of how we communicate with each other. And it's a great way to get information across to people in sneaky ways. Because once you say, I'm just telling you a story, they're like, oh, I can relax. She's just telling me a story. And that's great. And I got a question about overcoming mumbling. I will teach you a fabulous trick that I learned a long time ago. You take a pencil and you stick it in your mouth like this. And you talk around the pencil. And another way to do it is you put on a mask. You put on your mask and you practice talking to people so that they can understand you. And if they can understand you through the pencil or through the mask, then you have a key to stopping mumbling. It's all about opening your mouth, giving your face space. If you get TMJ, which I do, massage the, there's a space behind your lower jaw. Just put your fingers behind there just for a moment. And you'll find that there's a space back there, and it might be quite sore, tender. And we clench a lot. And especially, I don't know about you guys, but I've been clenching a lot over the last, 11 months. I don't know why. You would think maybe there's something going on. But, just loosen that up, wiggle it up, move your jaw from side to side, and practice opening your mouth. It's okay to open your mouth to speak. Try eating a banana, or a banana for you Americans. Open your mouth to speak. It's okay. People want to hear what you have to say. And those are some great tips. Do not put marbles in your mouth. I know those of you who watched My Fair Lady, and I know it's an old film, but Rex Harrison puts marbles into Audrey Hepburn's mouth and makes her enunciate, makes her enunciate around the marbles, and she winds up swallowing one. Do not do that. Let me say it again. Do not do that. Do I speak other languages? I like to think so. I speak French reasonably well. I speak Spanish less well. I know about 4 words of Portuguese and German and other things, but I love language. How do you deal with articulating a phrase or deal with losing your words when speaking? You take a breath. You pause. You tell your unconscious mind these words. It will come back to me. And practice that. Because it doesn't matter how young you are, we all have this phenomenon, tip of the tongue syndrome, brain fart, whatever you want to call it. We all have this phenomenon. But the key is not to panic, because I keep telling my mum is 75 and she'll forget a word or she'll forget something and be, oh no. And I'm like, breathe. It's not signs of early onset dementia. You've just forgotten a word. Just tell your unconscious mind what you want it to create. It will come back to me, or something like that. Some people don't like that. They get triggered by it. My mum gets triggered by it. But it's so you have to be creative. We're creative as coaches. You have to find different ways to work with people. Some words trigger people. You tell some people relax and they go like this. Oh, relax. I was like, yeah, no, you're not. So what's a different word that you can use? You can use soften. You can use comfortable. Be creative. And some advices or suggestions for all languages. Yeah, I think this applies across languages. And, it's the way we're communicating. And the purpose of the communication is the response you get. And if you're not getting the response you want, how can you change your communication? It's very easy to fall into the trap of, they just don't understand me. They're not getting it. You don't understand. What's wrong with you? Well, what if you say it differently? It's like I just said, some people, they hear the word relax, it triggers something from their past, and relax is not the right word. Some people prefer a different word, and something that I try and do with people is make sure that the words, if I'm going to do a hypnosis session, if I'm going to be coaching somebody, to make sure that if there's words that trigger them, that I work with that to clear up whatever that is if I can. And if I can't, I have to be more creative and come up with different words that won't trigger them, and will get the result. I want the result. The worst speaker you've ever heard and why he's so bad, I'm not going to say. But I think the problem with when voices trigger me and I find them uncomfortable to listen to, often it's a nasal voice, so they're talking from right up here, and that can kind of and that's a great question too. So yeah, so that can be annoying, but everybody's a bit different. But I'm not going to say who's one of the worst speakers I've ever heard. So you'll have to use your imagination. How can you speak without running out of breath while talking? Sometimes I overthink and then I forget to breathe. The breathing, you want to breathe from the diaphragm. You want to practice breathing, and you want to speak on the exhale. Because a lot of people, they will run out of breath and they're not breathing properly. And breathing is a practice. Get yourself some breathing training. Practice breathing. There's loads of videos on YouTube where you can learn about breathing. You can take a Qigong class. There's loads of ways to learn how to breathe effectively. And that can be beneficial for your health as well as your ability to speak. But you breathe you speak on the exhale. So you take in a nice deep breath from your diaphragm, from your belly, from your vagina, and you speak on the exhale. And you take your time. Take your time. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to slow down. I'm giving you permission. If anybody says you're talking too slowly and you're pausing, just say, well, I heard this gal and she gave me her permission. So, send them to me and I will straighten them out if they're giving you any guff about speaking a little bit slower, because it doesn't take much. It really doesn't take much. Just slow down a little bit and notice where you're breathing. And condition your voice. Train it before you start speaking. Do some warm-up exercises. Do some la 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 la. Do your voice as if you were a singer, because our voice is our instrument when we're speaking. And you want to take care of it. You wouldn't play a violin without putting rosin on the bow. You wouldn't play a clarinet without making sure that the reed is properly conditioned. So don't do that with your voice, because you can cause tremendous damage if you don't take care of your voice. I lost my voice for 6 weeks because I wasn't taking good care of it. I wasn't warming up before I performed. I wasn't taking good care of it. I wasn't supporting from the right place. And as a result, my body said, I hate you, and shut me up for 6 weeks. My mother thought she'd gone deaf. So take care of your voice. Projection is, well, partially I'm right on a microphone, so that's part of it. But projection is as much intention as it is volume. And that is also from where you support, because if you support from down below, then you have more power, you have more capacity in your lungs, you are supporting from the base, and you are giving strength and power, and that's how you send it out. But it's also an intention. You put your thoughts to the people at the back of the room. And that's how you do that with projection. It's as much intention as it is volume. And I can get loud. I can get very, very loud. But that's as much intention as anything else.
Danny, one more question. How do you turn a boring presentation, like statistics, for example, into a fun subject? How would you do that?
Well, you start with being interested in your topic and finding ways to make it interesting for yourself. What is it about this topic that fascinates you? What is it that you want to share with people that will make them realize what's so interesting about it? Have a love affair with your topic. Make it into your best friend. And it's like, oh, this is it. Let me tell you about this thing. I'm going to tell you about how the mean of all of these numbers, we studied these dynamics for weeks. We got all of these people together and we asked them all of these questions. And you know what's really absolutely fascinating? Well, I'll tell you next time. If you enjoy your subject, it cannot help but come through. That's the key. If you hate your subject, then it's much harder. It's not impossible, because anything that you want to do and you want to do well, you can find a way around it. And you may have to trick yourself. You may be like, I have to give this presentation about statistics. I absolutely hate it. I was forced to do it. I really don't want to do it. It absolutely sucks. Well, take a moment and think of, what is your favorite thing to talk about? What is the thing that really turns you on? I know with Maria, it's exercise and it's nutrition and getting people excited about wanting to be healthy. So you take, what is it about that that really excites you? And if you know anything about NLP, you can break down. It's like, when I think about this topic, am I seeing it in bold color? Is it three-dimensional? Am I seeing a movie of people running along the beach to the music from Chariots of Fire? Da, 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 da. And you can put a soundtrack in your head. It's like, I am going to do the statistics movie with John Williams. And let me tell you, da, 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 da. Music is powerful. You can bring up anything with an internal soundtrack and just make it really thrilling and fabulous and exciting if you want to. And somebody asked if I do voice coaching. Yes, I do. And are there any other questions?
And that's pretty much it. Like, we're on time for 5-minute break. So thank you so much, Danny. That was super valuable. As you can
see, my
very,
very great pleasure. You guys are fabulous. And thank you so much for inviting me today. And thank you very much. I appreciate it. And yes, if they want, what's that? Go ahead.
Do you want to say your information so people can find you?
Absolutely. Well, you can see my name very handily at the bottom of the page there, and that's how it's spelt. You can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn if you would like to connect with me. And I just really appreciate all of you being here. And if for some reason you don't get the information at this time, Maria knows where I live.
Yes, we'll share it on the next email. We'll send a follow-up email.
Well, you guys are fabulous, terrific questions. It has been a pleasure and a privilege, and I wish all of you the very best, and just to have as much fun as possible. That's my biggest advice to all of you, is find what you love to do and just have fun. Life's too short.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your information and your time. Really appreciate it. I'm sitting in my van. That's why I had my video off.
That's all right. Not judging at all. And I'm sorry to say that I am going to have to go because I've got another session that I have to go to. But thank you so very much for having me this evening. And thank you very much, all the people who have asked the fabulous questions. This was really a lot of fun. And just get out there and do presentations, because the more you do it, the more it becomes part of what you do. And the more fun you can have.
All right.
And smile.
Yeah.
Yeah, and smile. Yeah. Smiling has a huge neurological impact. If you look up and you smile, your neurology shifts. It has to. You can't look up and feel sad. Your brain doesn't function that way. Oh, thank you very, very much.
Yes.
Best to all of you. Mwah.
We're going to go into a